Manoa, got my bachelor's in molecular cell biology. Graduated December 2018, so I took a gap year and then got into Imi Hoola in the summer of 2020, so last year.
Thanks, Chantal. Okay, Ed?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Eduardo Biala, but you can just call me Ed. A little bit of background about myself as well. So I'm actually born and raised from the island of Guam. So pretty much traveled here to Hawaii to pretty much pursue medical school. So right now I'm staying in Eva Beach. I'm living with my family here. But prior to that, I went to high school back home. So John F. Kennedy High School, which is a public school back home. And then I did my undergrad as well back home at the University of Guam, majored in biology. And then took gap years and I worked both at the University of Guam and also at the hospital back home, Guam Memorial Hospital. And then, yeah, started EME along with Chantal in 2020 of July, and also Jess.
Thanks, Ed. Nice to meet you. Okay, Jess?
Hey everyone, my name is Jessica. I'm from Honolulu, Hawaii. I grew up in Kalihi, but then I moved to Salt Lake. I went to Moanaloa High School. I graduated with my Bachelor's of Science in Biology at UH Manoa. And then after that, I got my MPH also at UH. I graduated with my MPH last May, and then got accepted to Imi Hoola, so I started in July, same as Chantal and Ed. But I actually decided to withdraw from the program during the first semester. And we can have a whole conversation about that if you want. But yeah, so that's it. But I did, matriculate into the program, so I'm here to help you and to discuss about, interviewing for EME.
Thanks for being here, Jess. Okay, Jenny and then Sydney.
So I just wanted to apologize if my background is a little loud. I'm at school. But hi, everyone. My name is Jenny. So a little background about me. I was born in Vietnam and moved to Hawaii when I was 3 years old. I went to McKinley High School. And right now I'm in my 5th year of undergraduate, hopefully my last semester, to graduate with my BS in biochemistry. And then I have a minor in public health. And right now, I got invited to interview for Imi Hoola.
Congratulations. And then Jenny, how do you know, is it Jessica that invited you?
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you know Jessica?
So me and Jess met through PMA, and we're still good friends today.
Got it. Okay. Welcome. Okay, Sydney, then Jasmine.
Hi everyone, my name is Sydney. I was born and raised in Eva Beach, moved to Aiea when I was 6. I am a graduate of Aiea High School. I did my bachelor's in microbiology at UH in UH Manoa. I graduated December 2018. I am doing my master's now and I hope to graduate this semester. And I am also going to interview for Imi Hoola. Thank you for having me.
Okay, Jasmine and then Michelle.
Hi everyone, my name is Jasmine. I'm born and raised on the Big Island of Hawaii and graduated from Kea'a High School, so that's also a public high school. Studied biochemistry at the University of Hawaii at Manoa and graduated May 2019 and got interview invites for EV this upcoming cycle.
Okay, thanks Jasmine. Okay, Michelle, then Kim.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm so sorry. I'm not sure if my video is going to work today, but my name is Michelle Tong. I am from Waianae, Hawaii, but I currently live in Kalihi area. So I graduated from Punahou High School. I went to UH Manoa for my undergrad. I did a double major in biology as well as public health. And I also got my master's in public health from UH Manoa. So that was in 2018. So I'm taking a few gap years, as you can tell. I'm just working, volunteering, and I also got invited to interview with EME this cycle.
Okay, thanks Michelle. And then Kim.
Hello everyone. My name is Kim. I was born in Vietnam and I moved here in 2007 with my mom. I graduated from Roosevelt High School and went to UH Manoa, and I graduated last year in summer 2020. And I recently got invited to the Hoola interview.
Okay, thanks, Kim. So I'm Dr. Hiza Abinsai. I'm a pediatrician in a private practice, born and raised in Kalihi, went to JABSOM, went to LA, USC for training, and then came home. And then Dr. Gani Tano and I are just super dedicated to helping pre-medical students have the mentorship that they need to be successful to get into med school. As mentors, we can only do so much, right? And it's really up to you, but we want to at least give you the information that you need in order to know the right steps to get there. So part of that information is knowing and understanding the Imi Ha'ola interview process. So that's why we're here. So we're gonna really focus on the interview portion part. And if we have time, I want to end at 5. We can just expand it to what EMI is like in general. But let's get started. So let me just throw out a couple questions just to get it going. So let me start with Chantal. So Chantal, the EMI Ha'ola interviews. So I personally didn't go through EMI and I don't know the process. So how many interviews? Who are you interviewing with? What is the little details about that?
Okay, so when I interviewed, the pandemic just happened, so everything went online. We did it through Zoom, but I think you guys are in contact with Celeste, and some interviewers, I think they use even FaceTime. It's just whatever is convenient for them, so like stay in contact. So for me, I did it with 2 interviewers, like traditional, just like the JABSOM process. So it could be a faculty member, an MS4, just like a community doctor. I had one PhD. He was a professor, so he lectures for the medical students. And then I also had a medical doctor. He is a PBL tutor. And then the last one is with, I think everyone interviews with Dr. Lee. She is the director of Imi Ha'ola. And I think if you didn't go through the JABSOM interview process and meet with Dr. Asano, then you also have to meet with her. So that would be depending on 3 or 4 interviews. And it can vary in like length. For me, my interviews, I scheduled them back to back. So it ended up being an hour and a half with one of my interviewer and then an hour for the second one. But I've heard of like people, hopefully this is not your situation, but it only lasted like 15 to 20 minutes. And I'm not sure how they would like get to know you in that short amount of time. So hopefully that's not the situation that you have, because they are essentially advocating for you when they write up about you. So I think that was it.
And then Ed, do you know what information the interviewers have about you before you go into the interview? Like, do they know your MCAT, your GPA? Do they have your personal statement? Do you know that answer?
I think I might be able to answer a little bit about that. So it sounds like they pretty much have like our application packets that we had submitted. So all the information that was pretty much on our like packets, it sounds like they had access to that. I got asked a couple of questions about like specific things on my application. So I would say it's a good idea to go in your interviews knowing what you wrote, being able to look through it again, be able to, if you were asked a question about a specific point, to be able to answer that as well. At least when I interviewed also with the JABSOM side, it sounded like it was pretty similar in the sense that they also had that access to my information as well, all the things that I submitted with my AMCAS application. So I'd say just be knowledgeable of what you put both for AMCAS and also for your EMI application. That's a good way, I'd say, to kind of prepare for the interview process.
Okay, so Chantel commented, I recall my interview saying that he didn't have access to my MCAT and grades. Okay. So I think it depends on who you're interviewing it, right? So as a community physician, as a PBL tutor, um, they don't have your grades or your MCAS. They just have, I believe, your personal statement and your secondary essays for Imi Hoola and whatnot. But when you sit down with Dr. Asano and or Dr. Lee, for sure Dr. Lee and or Dr. Asano, they have everything. So they'll be the ones who nitpick your application. So when you go into those interviews, be ready to answer everything about your essay or your application. Is that right? Okay. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
So Jessica, question for you, like, just did you interview with JAPSOM?
I did the regular MDs, you
Right.
mean?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
How was it different? Was there a difference in the vibe or the questions between the JAPSOM and the Imi Hoola? And this question I think should go for all of you because I think that's an important question.
Okay, so for the regular MD, that was in person. So right there was a stark contrast, that being in person, and then the Imi Hoola interviews being over Zoom. And actually with Dr. Sana, it wasn't over Zoom. They used Skype. But I think they finally fully transitioned to using Zoom. So I don't think you should expect Skype. So for my regular MD interviews, I felt I had more like of the generic questions, like what is your most memorable leadership activity? Why JABSOM? I never really got that for my Imi Hoola interviews. It was more conversational. And I know Dr. Asano was like stressing about, staying in Hawaii, practicing in Hawaii, serving the community that I grew up in. And I think, Imi Hoola is all about that, staying in Hawaii and, working with your community and all of that stuff. So I know that they like to hear that, and that's the whole mission of Imi, and that's why we're applying to Imi Hoola. So that was sort of the difference there. I don't know. Yeah. And Dr. Lee, we don't interview with Dr. Lee for the regular MD admission. That's strictly for Imi Hoola, and she's just someone that will ask about your social support, your financial support, how do you deal with stress, things like that. She wants to know if you're going to be able to succeed and be okay while you're in the program, because it's such a rigorous year.
I think that's very interesting, Jessica, that you mentioned that Dr. Lee asks those kind of questions. Chantel, Ed, do you want to add to any of that?
So for me, I think they were pretty similar. Besides being in person and on Zoom, the questions that I got were really similar. So things like it started off with what qualities do you think you find in a good doctor. They did ask about my leadership in my Imi Hoola interviews, and I think they did that because one of the components of your Imi app was about leadership. So it definitely felt similar, almost exactly the same. And they would ask me what do I know about the JABSOM curriculum? That's very important, especially you have a PBL tutor. Definitely know about the PBL process because it's different from a traditional medical school where it's all lectures. And then for Dr. Lee, what Jess said, that it's going to be more about her telling you about the program. So be prepared to ask Dr. Lee questions regarding Imi Hoola, because out of all your interviewers, she's going to know the most. I'm not too sure if the community doctors and the PBL tutors or even the PhD, I don't think they'll know as much about Imi Hoola, but you could ask them what they see in medical students that matriculated from Imi Hoola, attributes that they have that make them stick out from traditional medical students. So things like that. But otherwise, they were all over an hour long, and it is very conversational, so going with the flow.
Sorry, could I just add?
Can I just add on to what Chantal said?
Oh, never mind. Okay. Okay, wait,
You can go,
just
Jess.
quickly.
I'll go after you.
So of my two community interviewers, he actually did not know anything about JABSOM. And so he had to ask me about the program. And I feel like a huge chunk of my time was spent just talking about what that program is. And then he kind of responded in like a derogatory way, making it seem like, oh, it sounds like you didn't prepare well enough for the MCAT. And I kind of was just really thrown off by the whole interview. And I had a lot of mixed feelings about that. And I thought that was going to jeopardize my chance of getting in. But it didn't. So I was relieved. And I did address that with Dr. Asano. I let her know, like, oh, this person had no clue about the program and, my concerns. And she was like, okay, I'm really glad to like receive this feedback. So I guess they might not use him again in future, for future interviews. But she does appreciate feedback if you have that. Yeah. So just in case you get, like Chantal said, in case you get someone who doesn't really know too much of the program, you might have to talk about it more, or don't be caught off guard if that's the case.
Yeah. So for me, I think for my interview for Amy, I think it was kind of like what Chantal had brought up. It was very conversational. For me at the time, I think a lot of what I was able to talk about stemmed from just like the ongoing pandemic. That was like a big conversation, I guess, starter that we ended up like talking a lot more about. And then also, for me at least, I had to talk a little bit about growing up in Guam, my experience, like coming from one of the islands in the Pacific, just because I think my interviewer, she wasn't really knowledgeable about like what life is like in Guam. It's pretty similar to Hawaii, but she just didn't really know much. So I got to use that as a good hook and conversation piece to get the interview process kind of going back and forth. And then I want to say they also asked, definitely highlight that they do ask a lot of questions about the curriculum. So it's a good idea to really know about PBL, at least know a little bit about it. Sometimes names of people you may know can also come up, and that's something that's also come about my interviews, where I could bring up a name of someone from back home and they would talk that too. So things like that were like little conversation bits that just the interview process and conversation going.
Okay, thank you. So let's see now. Bye, Dr. Ganitano. Thank you.
Oh, wait, I have a question.
Oh, you have a question. Thought you were saying bye.
Well, I'm kind of curious for the guys that interviewed for Amy. Like, one, did he ask you at all, whether it was Dr. Lee or the other interviewers, about why you think you didn't get in and are requiring Amy? And two, did he delve into why you may have had a disadvantage, or what aspects of that could have contributed to your overall application? So that's kind of the, how much of that did he really address head on, or, what was your feel during your interviews?
For me, they asked me like directly why I didn't get in, and I was just honest, and you should be honest if it was your grades or your MCAT. And then because you got invited to Imi Hoola, one of the requirements of getting in is having that disadvantaged status. So you're gonna have to kind of tell your story and kind of show like how you overcame, like, so pretty much like showcasing your resiliency rather than like focusing. Of course you have to address like the bad parts of your apps, but more so telling how you overcame those, because they want to see that you're able to overcome these challenges that you went through. But be prepared to answer that kind of question.
Yeah, like Chantal too, I did have, I got asked directly about my shortcomings for my application, why I didn't get in the regular MD application cycle. So I pretty much was just honest. I already knew going in what it was, so I brought it up with my interviewers. And then also in terms of like disadvantage, like what Chantal said, it's one of the kind of like things that you need to meet in order to basically be invited for an interview for EME, is that disadvantage status. And so it's a good idea to be able to highlight any of your, any of your experiences that you had where where you could showcase you overcame something, your resilience, because that's a big thing. I feel like that is emphasized in the program, is the idea of resilience. And so be able to kind of think about a situation like that if you were to be asked, and kind of talk about it in that terms.
Yeah, Dr. Asano was pretty frank about, my MCAT score, and she asked me, I think she asked everyone like how they approach studying for the MCAT, and she kind of wants like a pretty specific or detailed explanation of how you studied for your exam. And she also would like, for me at least, she pinpointed like a specific section on my MCAT. One of them being a science. So there's a science, there's a chemistry, and there's a biochem section. And one of them was a bit lower than the other. So she was kind of wondering, like, she asked me like what happened there. So yeah, just being prepared to answer anything about that, anything about your MCAT or your grades and whatnot, and have a story as to, why that may be the case, if you had a bad semester, if you had a bad year, etc.
Any other questions, Dr. Ganitano? That's a great question. No? Okay. So my next question is, what kind of student do you think, I mean, I know we talked about resilient leadership, but what else do you think that they're looking for in a student in the EME program? Like, what does it take in order to thrive in EME that you think that our students highlight?
I can answer this one, Dr. Bingsai. I think the big thing I would say is flexibility and being open to, I guess, trying new things. It seems like a lot of the initial parts of the program emphasize the idea of like you need to be able to flexible. I guess like kind of like encompasses pretty much everything that's been going on right now too with the pandemic, is just being able to be flexible and being able to kind of adapt and figure out where you need to make any changes that need to happen along the way, and just be able to have that kind of like open mindset, be able to try new things, see if it works, if it doesn't, and then be able to course correct from there. Chantal, do you want to add on anything?
No, I agree that like being open-minded, because you're going to do a lot of things that kind of push you out of your comfort zone, and also the ability to work as a team. You're going to be a group of 12 students, and you're going to get really close, and they want to see that you're able to work together, especially because it is PBL. So you are teaching each other, and you're just want to make sure that you are able to work with others. And I think also like if you have like bad grades, like in science courses, one of the things that I asked Dr. Lee during my interview was, what did she see in a successful EME Hoola student? And I thought it would be, she said that there was a trend when it came to like MCAT and grades, but what she really saw was the resiliency, like someone being able to overcome, and also their positive attitude. So you have to go in, you're gonna be scared, you're gonna be anxious, but you have to always have a positive mindset. And that's what she saw the most in people that were able to successfully complete the program.
Thank you. Those are gold. I learned.
Hazel, as an interviewer, I mean, do you agree that you have to go in pretty positive? You got to come in and sell yourself, even if you got, okay, I didn't get into the regular MD track. You really got to walk into your EME interview basically without being cocky. You're the best student that they can pick, and they should pick you because you're not going to get somebody better than you. I mean, I think So when I interview people and you're not high on yourself, you're not getting it, right? There's enough things you got to conquer in the road, and you need to be you shouldn't be your own worst enemy, I suppose, when you're going in. You need to be able to show that. So I think personally, an air of self-confidence without being cocky is as important as the right answer.
And I think going in, giving off the message that I really want this, right? Like I will work hard if you do accept me, will come off. And I think that determination is really important to, if you have it, let it shine. Because we all know that Imi Hoola is a very difficult program, right? And so we want someone in, like what Chantel is saying, is resilient. Like you're gonna get beaten down. I don't know, I've never been an Imi, but you're gonna get beaten down a lot, I'm assuming. But you gotta like quickly tidy those feelings up and then just let it go and then pick yourself right back up and keep moving forward. You can't let those moments like weigh you down for a long time. So yeah, thanks, Dr. Ganitano.
Because a lot of what Chantal said was correct. I mean, you're going to have to do a lot of things for the first time. And Chantal, I'm just going to tell you, the rest of your medical career is filled with this. So they're just getting you used to and ready for med school, residency, and beyond. You know, they're just getting you to move forward. But I think, and if any of you have any anger, being upset at why they didn't take you through the straight MD program, whatever, vet that out and get it out the door before you go in your interview. Because if you see any of that, it's not going to fly. You know, they don't want to hear why it was someone else's fault why you didn't get in, right? It's all about why you think you didn't get in and how through EME you're going to make up for some of those things and be the awesome med student the year after.
Okay. I don't have any more questions specifically about interviews. Michelle, Sydney, Jasmine, Kim, I open up to you.
One more question.
Nope, never mind.
And again, if all of you who did go into EME had one question to ask your interviewers, what question would you ask them? Because you're going to be asked, do you have any questions? So what are some of the best questions you think there's to ask?
Or did you
go?
Oh, okay.
Sorry. So one of the questions I had is, I know that going into EME, if I do get in, they usually encourage students to not do any extracurricular activities, understandably so because the program is so intensive. But I have heard that, or I do know that one of the missions and goals is to, serve the community and provide healthcare. So I was wondering if EME Hoola, like JABSOM, have any planned community service events that the students do in order to really get involved in the community and give back, just like JABSOM.
So that's a question you're planning on asking the interviewer. Was that your, okay. 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 Yeah, that's a good question. I honestly feel like, just to let you know, the interviewers, I think a lot of the interviewers didn't go through EME Hoola themselves. And so they might not know the details of the program. So you may or may not get a answer on that one, but that's a good question. Is that a question you genuinely want to know the answer to, that you want them to answer for you? Okay. Chantel, Ed.
Okay,
So Jenny,
sorry.
I was going to say that might be more appropriate for Dr. Lee.
Yes, I agree. But then, do you guys do community service during EME Hoola? You do a little bit, right?
So that's more, I think, we're not there yet, but for phase 3. So there's like 3 phases. I think the handbook has like more details about it, but phase 1 is like the introduction to EME, so getting to know each other and your classmates, getting prepared for phase 2, which is the bulk of EME. So that's from pretty much August all the way to May. And this is where you grind. We don't really do community service during that time because there really is no time for it. You're gonna be studying, well, for me, I'm like at JABSOM from 8 a.m. to pretty much midnight every day. Not to scare you, but yeah, there is no time during phase 2 to really do community service. It's going to be you studying, learning the foundational science, so your medical biology and your biochemistry classes, and just like focusing on succeeding in those classes and passing. And then phase 3, once you know, like you pass, then typically students get to do like shadowing and stuff, but because of the pandemic, I don't think we'll get to do that. But our service that we do throughout the year is really giving back to Kalaupapa. That's integrated into our curriculum, the patients with Hansen's disease on Molokai. So throughout the year we work, because we aren't able to go there this year, they've been going there for past couple years, and they would meet the patients there. So for us, we like gave food to them, and that's like kind of our way of service throughout the year. But other than that, it's going to be mostly studying.
Okay. Thanks, Jenny, for the question. Thanks, Chantel, for the answer. Other questions that the group
I would
had?
say maybe a good idea, kind of like I know Jess had put, like she would write 2 to 3 questions to ask her interviewers at the end. I'd say a good start is once you figure out who your interviewers are, do your research on them, find out what, if they're a practicing MD, what their specialty is, if they're a PhD where they do research, to find out what they do research in. I feel like those are good starts to kind of figure out and gauge how you can go about and kind of get a conversation going and started. Because that's what for me, that was pretty much the first thing I would always do once I received who my interviewers were, was find them, see what their research is, if they have any publications that were recent or anything that seemed interesting in my opinion, I would highlight that, kind of ask them questions about it, kind of things like that. I'd say that's a good idea to kind of get prepared for follow-up questions if you wanted to do afterwards at the end of your interview.
It always throws me off at the end of the interview when I ask, so do you have any questions? And then they start asking something very personal about me. So Dr. Binse, I saw on the internet that you do this. I'm like, whoa. It's like internet stalking a little bit. But yeah, I feel like I need to like prepare myself.
I personally don't like that because it's kind of like, as an interviewer, and I've interviewed a lot of people, this is not about me. You know, this is about you. So if you gotta fill time with stuff about me, then you don't have enough stuff to talk about yourself. You know, I got in med school already. You don't need to talk about my research or my background. You should, if you want to ask me that just as a regular in conversation question, I think that's good. But yeah, I'm like with Hazel. I think I feel stalked if you start asking me about my fellowship program and what I did as chief resident and yada yada. I mean, I think you're better off finding if you look at it, how do you interject what you've done to maybe get me interested? But even then, it's like instead of selling yourself, you're just trying to play the game. And I don't know if that's necessarily the best way to do it, at least moving forward when you guys do interviews. My opinion.
Or you somehow tie it into something that you want to learn about the program, right? Or so say something like, Dr. Ganitano, I read that you were chief resident of internal medicine when you were here training. Like, how was that experience for you? Do you feel like being a chief resident here in Hawaii is XYZ? So something that you can learn about the program itself through his experience is maybe a good way to tie it in, rather than like, oh, how is your research? Even though you don't care anything about his research, how's your research? Obviously, you're doing it just to get on their good side, right? Not necessarily because you're interested. So I do agree with Dr. Ganitano on that. Like, you're just trying to like get us on the, I don't know how to explain it, but yeah. Thanks, Dr. Ganitano. So Dr. Ganitano has interviewed a lot as part of, he's interviewed for the internal medicine residency program. Did you do for med school too?
I did job some interviews for a couple years. Interestingly enough, a lot of my med students that I interviewed for med school are now attendings, which I think is really, really cool. And they remember interviewing with me, which is even more scary. And then I chaired the resident selection committee for the UH internal medicine program for a decade. So not only did I do interviews, I designed whole admissions processes. So, I mean, I kind of do have a little idea of what interview stuff is like. I mean, again, I honestly, the biggest advice is this is about you. What is it about you that's special and unique and it's going to make them want to take you? I mean, I think when the EME, when you guys go to first year, you know, everyone's going to know your EME, but it's not just because they know that you were already around or they saw you around and it's never, to be honest, it's never a negative thing. And if it is a negative thing amongst your classmates who don't know, they will quickly find out that you're running circles around them, especially the, you know, MD1, MD2, because you're going to know your way through the process. So again, what's going to make you that EME student that I take? You know, I also sat on student selection, student standing and selection committee. And, you know, every once in a while you get a handful of EME students. And I think it's really that concept of being resilient. The reason they pound you on that in their interviews and they're going to find that out is they really want resilient people, right? Because a lot of your disadvantages, unfortunately, are not going to go away when you get to med school. Your EME is just giving you the skills to get through it and adapt so that you can overcome some of those disadvantages, but you have to be resilient. So really, I like, as the students have mentioned, how are you going to get across that you're resilient? And that if you can handle I mean, not getting to med school, I can imagine is a very hard thing to do. And in addition to other obstacles you had your whole life, how was being able to beat those obstacles going to be telling us about your character so we know, hey, Chantel's going to be awesome because if she could handle that, she can handle med school, not going to be a problem. That's the kind of thing I'm guessing, or at least from what I'm seeing in the type of students we have through EME that they're looking for. They want to make sure that you can handle.
Okay. Thanks, Dr. Ganitano. Okay, Jasmine, Michelle, Sydney, Jenny, this is your chance.
What?
So I had a question. You mentioned that you have to know the PBL curriculum pretty well, or the Japson curriculum, but how well do you have to know the EME Hoola? Will they ask you questions about that, like specific questions?
I think that like whatever you can, if you can ask like friends, but they might be a little secretive because there is a process for EME Hoola. So like reading the handbook, and I'm sure, or most likely your first two interviewers won't really know anything about the EME curriculum. So it's gonna just be pretty much between you and Dr. Lee. And she'll introduce every phase to you, what it's composed of, and then you can just like ask her questions from there. And that's how you'll learn about the program, is through her. But maybe just like read your handbook and like the Japson website, whatever they describe about EME Hoola on there. But yes, for Japson, know your PBL curriculum. And if you did the PBL, what's that called? Like they have that tutorial for pre-med students. Yeah,
The
if you
demo,
did that.
Chantal.
Yeah, the demo, then maybe you can like tie that into if you've had that. But if not, then maybe ask your like medical student friends like for more information about it, because you don't want to go in there and not know anything about it. Like that would not be good.
Okay. Other questions? I honestly don't know the EME Hoola curriculum. It's kind of nebulous. Like I have no idea. They don't really publicize this online. Like what is stage 1? What is stage 2? What is stage 3? So it's big secrets. Okay. Jenny, Sydney, Michelle, Kim? None?
I have a question, but this is more specifically towards Ed because he's also outer island like me. Did they ask about your support system?
Yeah, so that was a big question that I got asked. I think Dr. Lee specifically asked me about that because I think I don't, I'm trying to remember if I had to write about it, but in the interview, or at least for the application, but for sure it's something that will come up, and it's just good for them to kind of know and gauge what it's like. So I'd say just be completely honest about the type of support system you have. For me, like I talked about how I had family here, and that was like one of um, my big things that allowed me to pretty much make a transition from living back home to here a lot smoother, was having a place to stay already, knowing where I was going to be, you know, things like that. So I highlighted those things and talked about that. So I'd say that's a good thing to bring up about, and just to know about already and be able to talk about.
I had a question I'm not sure if it's just during the regular JABSOM interviews or if they do this in EME interviews as well, but I heard that sometimes they talk about upcoming healthcare legislative topics. So did you guys have any of those questions? Like, what are your thoughts on physician-assisted suicide or like vaccine equity, that type of thing? Or is that more of a I heard they maybe ask those for outer islands or like mainland applicants, or they're from different countries, or do they ask that for local applicants as well, if anyone knows?
I'm gonna guess those are fair game questions. You're never gonna be able to predict. Just depends on how evil your interviewer wants to be that day. I don't think they have any rules that say I'm only gonna ask outer island people. What about rail in Hawaii, just to rile you up, or that kind of stuff. But I think anytime you're applying to anything where it could be about medicine, those are fair game questions. So you at least need to know what's in the news, right?
I think not relating to like legislature, but I think I was asked about like why doctor and not a nurse or a PA. And I think I also got asked like, there's a lot of things you can do to help people, like why a doctor, something like that. I think I got asked 2 of those questions.
Chantel, Ed, did you have any of those kind of questions on your interviews?
I definitely had that for my JABSOM interviews, and I think it depends on the interviewer, because one of my interviewers did, like, his background was kind of like he liked scenarios. Like, I could tell he liked scenarios, so he did give me like scenario stuff, like for example, like what would you do, like you had a patient whose parents, were against like vaccinations, like for example, like stuff like that, and it can be uncomfortable. But I think like you don't have to agree with them, but maybe just saying your stance and being able to provide like support for your claims, and just like sticking with it. You should also know about like insurance and the healthcare system. Yeah, that was like another topic that actually surprised me, but so it's just good to prep for those.
Just remember,
for me,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Doug. I was just gonna say, for me, I actually didn't get any of those kind of scenario questions, but I did get asked a lot more for, I guess, like things that were more related to current issues in medical school. So like, how would you deal with like a classmate who was saying they were suicidal, or how would you deal with a classmate that you saw cheating? So things like that, more scenarios that were related towards, I guess, things on the medical school side, and not really like care policies or national issues. Those were more so kind of the things that I had during my interview.
I was just gonna say that as an interviewer, 2 things. Number one, a lot of times the interviewers are gonna disagree with you, not because they disagree with you, but because they want to see what you do. So example, one of my friends, when he interviewed for med school, he's a surfer, and he was like, he was asked, "Oh, what do you like to do?" And he goes, "Oh, I like to surf." And the interviewer told him, "Yeah, surfers make bad doctors. What do you think about that?" And he basically had to defend why, his love of surfing and that as a hobby, gave him the discipline to be a physician. And it turns out that the interviewer was an avid surfer, but she just threw that out there because she wanted to see, do you have conviction? you know. And the other kind of questions you may have is the concept of behavior questions, meaning past behavior and attitude predicts future performance. So they're going to ask you, and Chantel, sorry, I just call on you because you're the one that's on my screen. You know, Chantel, tell me about a time in your life when you failed at something. And then, you know, you're going to have to come up with an answer. Tell me about a time when you were on a team and somebody on your team wasn't pulling their own weight. You know, so what are you going to do? And do you really want you to use not hypotheticals? You want you to say like, oh, when I was in third grade, you know, I was on a team and this one guy was just lazy and didn't want to do things. So I have to go and tell him that you have to work harder or something. You want like specific, not made up things. So kind of think some insight ahead of time. And when you get those questions, really look, you know, they're looking for people with insight. So I think you really want to be able to speak to those things, but they're not uncommon questions. Like when's the last, and they always like to ask you about when did you fail at something? What is your biggest failure in your life and how do you deal with it?
Yeah. Okay, good. That was really useful. Okay. Anything else? It's 4:50. Any other questions?
Do they still ask like the very big 3 common questions? So like, tell me about yourself, why medicine, and then I guess why JAPSOM or EME? Do they still ask those questions?
Definitely know why you want to go into medicine. Yeah, like have your story, like what instances or experiences have like led you to that decision. Like if you knew you wanted to be a doctor since you're a kid, like why? Or maybe if you like change majors midway through college, like be able to explain that, like why you want to go into medicine, and then your future goals, like as a physician, what do you want to do? Like you might not know what you want to do yet, like specialty wise, but maybe just like your general goals. But yeah, definitely know that. And then tell me about yourself. I didn't really get that, but I know a lot of people, you probably like have one like prepped. So maybe be prepared. You never know if they start off with that. Yeah.
Actually, yeah. So it'd be different. So Chantal said that she didn't get the tell me about yourself, but I actually got that question for one of my interviews. That was pretty much the opening conversation of the interview was tell me about yourself. So be able to pretty much tell about yourself in a way that you could do so in a way that's you know, like what both Dr. Zabinsai and Dr. Gani were saying, where you're, you know, making yourself shine, but you're not being cocky, you're not being too overly, you know, too much like that pizzazz. You want to just be able to do just enough to be like humble, but also highlighted. So things like that. I started off, I had that conversation pretty much come about. So the big 3s can definitely come up. And it's just good to be able to write for those kind of questions as well.
Yeah, I think Dr. Asano did ask me to tell me about myself, and that we ended up having a 10-15 minute convo just off of the things that I listed. So I think, for example, one of the things that I talked about was my love for traveling. And so she asked me a question about like, how do I prepare for a trip? And I ended up telling her about, you know, how I would make a Google Doc and I would have an itinerary. Like I just went step by step on that. And she was interested. Like she wanted to see how I approached traveling. Was I the type of person to just like, she also wanted to know like, how did you pick the places that you visited? So she was just kind of like nitpick about that. And she was interested like how my mind worked about those things. So maybe also something to look out for, like when you interview with her, since all of you will, she might ask you to kind of elaborate on how you thought about something.
That is really interesting. And I could see why.
That is very Ivy though. Ivy is totally, that's her mindset. I've known Ivy for 20 years. This is totally.
That's really cool. Okay. Anything else?
I have a question on like to kind of follow up, like what exact specific things should you include and like why do you tell me about yourself. Like I don't know what to include or like where to start.
Well, if you had 5 minutes to tell me who you are uniquely, then that's where you start, right? I mean, it's going to be different for everybody. So you have to really, you know, what are you excited about? What are you, or like, again, who are you? If I only had 5 minutes to figure out who you are, and that, you know, it's a really personal answer, unfortunately. Some people talk about where they came from, where their family. Some people talk about what they do or their goals. It's really a very personal thing, and it's just a matter of what do you feel is important. I mean, I honestly feel that they'd rather hear the unique thing about you rather than the generic answer where you talk about all your volunteering at the hospital and this and that. They want to rather hear how you worked for an organization and started a blood drive rather than just, you know, the common stuff. So what's going to make you stand out compared to the person that's interviewing next?
Okay. Do the AME students have anything to add on that?
You want to go, Ed? You can go.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that, yeah, pretty much, I feel like it's something that you kind of, I don't know, it's very personal, and so you need to be just be able to kind of pick up on it, when you can. Like maybe a great, how prepared for that kind of question was just think of like the big three, like highlight three things that you feel like you make you unique, that you feel like are very close and personal to you, and talk about that. So mine was growing up in a small island, being surrounded by family, friends, like people, that is in such a close community. And then I talked about, just I think my last one was starting up like teaching, like starting up, what do you call that, a like Saturday science program for students who were interested in science. So I talked about that because that's what got me going a little bit, was seeing their minds going. So things like that, be able to like just pick out three things that you feel like are like dear to you, and then be able to make that shine.
Okay. 4:56. Jasmine, Kim, Michelle, Sydney, Jenny, good luck. We wish you the best. We here at PMAH, and this extends to Kim, Michelle, and Jenny also, we do simulation interviews. Dr. Ganitano, myself, and Rose Nino. So if you need practice just to brush up on your interview skills prior to the real one, we're here for you. Jenny, Michelle, Kim, your connections here know how to reach us if you want to schedule. And so we're more than happy to, okay? So that's something that we do. Practice, right? Chantel, Jessica, Ed, practicing, getting those words out and actually saying it to someone that doesn't know you is probably one of the best things you can do to do well in this interview. So practice. And we're here to give you feedback as well. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Can I ask Ina Hoola students to hang back and then talk story small kind, and then good luck. Thank you.
Wait. I just wanted to say, like, right before you interview, just take a big deep breath, go to the restroom, like, get out your nerves, just like, just shake it all off. And remember to like breathe, because you don't want to like talk too fast during your interview. So, just try to relax and stay calm. And you'll hear back in mid-May, I believe. I think I found out May 13 last year.
Yeah, good luck, everyone. Just remember, like, advocate for yourself. Like, why should you choose me for the Amy Hall program? Like, why do I want to be a doctor? Like, have confidence. Yeah, and also, like, just always be professional and respectful, and just go in with a positive attitude. Good luck.
Yeah, good luck, everyone. You got this. No one knows you better than yourself. So just remember, just be you. Get all the nerves out, and just remember, at the end of the day, it's probably just gonna end up being like a conversation. So you got this.
Okay. Jasmine?
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. We wish you luck. We hope for good news in mid-May. Yeah. Thank you. Bye.